Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, to the February Board of Education meeting. I'd like, before we get rolling on this, to get consent to move the audit up to now so that we can get Brock out of here. All right with that?
Yep.
So we'll begin with our auditor, and you are all ready to go. Yep. Make sure you turn the mic on when you're up there.
Does that work? Is that on?
Perfect.
All right. Well, thanks for moving me up. I am double booked tonight, so I appreciate that, so I can get down to Baldwin here next. But
theirs isn't near as good as ours.
it is not. I'd prefer to stay here, but they want me down there. So I'm going to give you some highlights of the 2016 audit, and I don't know if you've got the handout. If you received that, it's a 2-page summary. I'll just work you through that. That gives you all the highlights from what you'd want to hear from us as auditors anyway, and more condensed version than that full booklet at the audit report. So I don't know if we're able to bring that up on the screen or no. Okay. Well, I'll get going for those of you that have the handout then. The way this works is I cover the reports we issue first and then go into just a few of the financial highlights. We do draft and issue a financial statement for the school district, and we include in that an audit opinion. We've issued an unmodified opinion as a result of our audit. That's the highest level you can receive. That's what you hope to achieve. It means the amounts and disclosures for fiscal year 2016 are materially correct. There was really only one reporting change this year from last year, and that was GASB 72. That's just a way we disclose footnotes. It added about a page of notes in the footnotes. Not significant though. More so from a change from last year is the WRS piece, and that's why we're here probably a little later than normal. WRS, you need to capture a proportionate share of the plan run by the state. So the school district's portion of that. You bring on your books. Well, you're reliant on them for some financial information. And initially it was issued in December, about middle December, and we noted that the information wasn't accurate. So we contacted ETF, and they had to re-release all the information for the employers. And that information came out on January 11th. Normally, your audit due date is December 1st every year, and it always has been. And usually, that means usually your numbers and everything's set in November. So we're just a little bit later this year because of we were waiting on information from the state. One key note with this, though, last year I was here, I talked about WRS, your portion, the proportionate share, was an asset. So a very well-funded plan. There's actually more assets down in the state plan than there was obligations at the time. Well, there's a lot of actuarial estimates involved in that turn this year. So now for 2016, you brought on a liability. So actually, because the way the numbers flushed out, and maybe that was part of the delay, I don't know, but it ended up being a liability that you bring on your books. It's not one like bonds where you're prepaying them, but if you do note that in your audit report, WRS pension liability, that's what that means. It's the actuary's number of your portion of the state plan that comes on your books. We issued a management letter as well. We do have a couple things that are repeating here, but overall you receive a very, very good management letter. These two are very common. Almost all of our clients receive the same two. One just states that we draft financial statements, and the other one is states that there isn't, from an ideal standpoint, you don't have enough people in the finances to properly segregate everything but for your transaction cycles, right? Your receipts, your disbursements. When we did our testing, we didn't note any problems with those, no fraud or misappropriation or anything like that. It's just a matter of the fact, right? Everything we checked out worked out just fine, but it's a reality that you live with, and it's a cost-benefit consideration you consider every year. There is one on here that you do not receive, and I want to point this out because it is a very common one. When we come into clients and we do audits, usually we're posting adjustments to the books, and here we didn't do that. The numbers were good. That's reflective of finance and the good record keeping that they do. So appreciate that. Third and final is on compliance, and there were no items to report there, so that's also a very, very good report. Any questions on those before I skip down? All right. Then I'll talk about a few of the financial highlights here. The handout gives you a 4-year comparison. Let's start out here with the general fund. A couple things to note. You do short-term borrow, and I'll point out a little bit of reasons why that here in a little bit. You'll see here right in the middle of the table, there's a short-term notes payable amount that you haven't had a balance there since the end of 2013. You actually borrowed during the year, but it's repaid. So this is a point in time at the end of your fiscal year. You actually didn't hold any debt for short-term debt at that point in time, but you did borrow about $500,000 during the year for cash flow reasons. So when I look at the financial health of the district, I'm looking at the fund balance section. So right in the middle there's 3 rows, non-spendable, assigned, and unassigned. I'm going to focus in on the unassigned because that's the portion we consider, your true reserves or what's available to you, and that's $3.1 million. I compare that to the second shaded row, which is your expenditures for the year. So what's the money going out? And I get that ratio at the bottom, the 16.6%. And here you might discuss this at budget time or other, during the audit here as well. Your percentage there has been very consistent. You have an internal policy of a minimum of 5%, so you're above your own policy. Our general rule of thumb is a little higher than that. I think we've mentioned that probably as well, but typically we'd like to see a minimum of 25%. That's only about 3 months worth of operating reserves for a variety of reasons. And one kind of points in here at your cash flow. Now, your short-term cash flow borrowing has been light compared to historical trends, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that your revenues exceeded expenditures the last few years. If you see your trend there, your change in fund balance right above that last shaded row, you can see that it's been positive, so that's helped you out from a cash flow standpoint. And usually when we see districts in the teens or lower with the percentage, they're incurring more cost for short-term borrowing. So you have that a little bit, but it's a bit mitigated because you've had good results. For perspective, we work with 30 school districts, and the average there is 27.3%. Obviously, some are lower, some are higher, but that's the average. So give you a little perspective. On page 2, talk about a few of your other funds, and here's just the year-end fund balance, not all the rest of the balance sheet. A couple things of note. Food service has been trending well here. There's been positive results the last 3 years, which you've been able to rebuild your fund balance there. It was pretty low back there in 2013. Community services fund, there's multiple funds that make up that total. I guess just to explain, there was a pretty sharp decrease there. That was a loss in your Fund 85 or daycare program for the year, so you want to keep your eye on that. Your debt service fund here, there was quite a bit of activity there. Your year-end fund balance is just over $2 million. You issued $5.9 million of debt during 2016, and that was to refund an old debt. So you held debt that's from 2005, they're bonds, and what you did is you paid those off and you replaced it with new debt at a lower rate. People usually do refunding to save on interest or change up their repayment schedule going forward. So took advantage of that during 2016. This balance here, you've got about $2 million, and that's a result of a number of things. There has been a trend of there's more levy and revenue sources going in here than your principal and interest costs for the last couple of years. That's a small part of the buildup. But also there's some unspent bond premiums. So when you issue debt, usually you get the par value of the debt plus a premium, and not always. Sometimes there's a discount depending on the market. But lately there's been premiums, so you get an amount above. And usually that premium is directed to be put in your debt service fund. What that does is ensure you're able to pay your principal and interest as it comes due. So to the extent you continue to levy and get these other sources in that match up with your debt service, you're going to continue to have this balance here. It'll give you options going forward to, the $2 million can go towards future debt or something of that nature, but related to debt, of course. You didn't have a capital projects fund that was active during the year. And then lastly on here, just a summary of your long-term obligations. I'd already mentioned the refunding, so you can see how that impacted your general obligation bonds. The fact that you issue debt and you pay it off, it's pretty much, not exactly, but it somewhat matches up. So that decrease there from $9.1 million to $7.2 million is primarily your regular principal payments as they came due. You made those during 2016. All right, a little bit further down in the other long-term debt obligations, there was a new phone lease this year. That's why your capital lease went up. The next two items, the supplemental pension, that's not WRS, that's your pension plan that you run unique to this district. and a lot of other districts do that as well. But the one that you operate here and the OPEB, the other post-employment benefits, those numbers went down. Actually, the pension turned into an asset because as you fund it, as if the contributions that you are, in this case the pension, required to make exceed what the actuary says your annual required contribution is, then your total liability goes down, or in this case turned into a small asset at the end of the year. That's a bit of a timing issue. You're on essentially a pay-as-you-go basis with that pension. So as they come due, you make those payments. So it balances out over time, and in theory goes to zero at the end of time. So same thing with your OPEB. That was a timing issue there as well. And lastly, here you can see the impact of your net WRS pension liability or assets. So last year, again, it was an asset. That's why it's a negative number in this particular table. That turned to a $2.6 million liability in the current year. But again, it's important to know you're not going to cut any checks for that. You continue to pay WRS benefits as you go. That will change the numbers down at the pension plan every year, and then they will, the legislative auditors will release that audit each year, which we then bring in those numbers. So that's more for informational purposes and how it ties back into your report.
There's no red flag that comes on that number, a red flag number, is there?
No,
that you'd be concerned about?
Correct. I would say that's an accurate statement at this point. I mean, if this continues to go significantly deficit, the plan gets underfunded, they might have to do something about that from a funding standpoint. But
being
the ETF,
okay.
the administrator of the plan. So they will change either the contribution rates or something of that nature to make up the difference. But I wouldn't foresee governmental entities having to take out debt, maybe like some had in the past, to fund the program. Yeah, and then lastly, the very last item on here is just a measurement against your debt limit. So there's a statutory limit to how much general obligation or tax-supported debt you can hold. You're at 8.6% of that, and for school districts, anywhere from, depending on construction projects of some of that nature, anywhere below 30% is typically where we see people. So overall, if you look at your financial statements and certainly the reports we issued on your controls and the report itself, I think I'd conclude everything is very positive. Just to wrap it up, I guess, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
I think I'm good.
Yeah. Your comment on limited segregation of duties is just we're doing a good job with less employees.
Oh, essentially, isn't it because you have to have certain things that normally you have another person take care of? Now you check those to make sure that everything is kosher, may I say? Or everything is on the up and up?
Could.
Right?
Good. Yep, we test your controls. You're right. So you do have controls in place to mitigate the fact that you don't have enough people involved.
Okay.
Maybe that's an approval or whatnot. But so we definitely, we're actually, part of our testing is required to do that. So we look over those, and if there were any deficiencies in that or errors because of that, we'd be reporting them here. There were none. What we tested worked out just fine. So we can conclude your internal controls are working as you intend, but that still means, I met with a business manager group just about a month ago or a little less, and we talked about this and what you can do. And it's interesting because we did an internal control study for a county, for example, and we gave them 100 pages of recommendations to fix. So and they're a big organization, right? They've got a lot of different things in place, and it's much more from an accounting standpoint, complex than a school district, maybe, because of all the different components and departments. But that just gives you perspective that just about any organization, certainly a government here in Northwest Wisconsin, you're going to have shortcomings that you live with because it's not practical to hire 2 or 3 people to fill in those gaps. You do other things instead. Okay.
That's good. Great. Mm-hmm. Dismissed.
All right.
Say hi to Baldwin.
Get Baldwin.
Tell them how much you enjoyed it.
Do they have extra money they want to send this way? Find out you don't know anything inside. I know they tried to sell us a pool a few years ago. All right, great. So we can move on here and get back up to the top of the agenda, and Mr. Wellman is here with our spotlight on education.
Never want to follow the auditor, right?
Yeah. It's a tough act.
You actually do, because
Wake up, everyone. I teach a class. We kind of affectionately call it the Warrior Workshop. If you want to go to the next slide. This actually started with Mr. Meyer last year. He began with a small group of kids, a handful of kids, taking them down to the tech ed shop area and started making some woodworking tasks with them that they then would sell within the school and the community. The kids get to, we wanted to make it a realistic workplace-like thing, so they get paid very nominally for if they're meeting the expectations, which you can see they need to be on task, follow directions, display appropriate behavior, and then get along with their coworkers, being respectful within the classroom. So this summer, go ahead, Miss Wesley and I met and kind of talked a little bit more about long-term what the purpose of the class was. So number one, students, particularly the students that I work with in special ed, it's easy to get a job. It's really hard for them to keep a job because of some of the social problems that they have. So we talked about what are some of the skills that they need to learn so that we can change that where they can keep jobs. And then within that, how can we provide that at school so that they can become that productive member of society? Could we do more than just woodwork? Could we do other jobs as well so that they could get more experience in different types of areas that might lead them down a path? And then within that, how could we add more functional academics within it? So really trying to kind of beef that up a little bit more. It was a great start, but we wanted to make it a little bit more set. So this fall, we started out doing auto detailing. We started a business where we went to the middle school. We would take a car, and we would need it for 2 days. So it was mostly teachers we worked with. We did get some from the community. But we would get a car, and we would do the interior cleaning one day, complete interior, vacuuming, cleaning all the windows, scrubbing out all of the little cup holders. Some interesting things were found. Lots of parents like to bring their cars in and get them cleaned, so that was good. And then the following day, we would do the entire exterior. Unfortunately, the weather worked out really well with us for that. So in order to get the kids ready, they had to research what they needed to have, what supplies they had to have, how they needed to do it. We did a field trip to New Richmond to buy the supplies we needed. We came back and figured out the cost of everything we had bought and then had to come up with a price. So the kids were really involved in every step of creating the business. They made flyers. We went downtown and they talked to business owners and asked if they could put flyers up. Some of the business owners asked questions and they did a really nice job with that. So I think I have a picture here of some of the kids working on, I believe that's Mr. Gould's van. So after we did the auto detailing, we moved on to, again, I kind of went over that. So the different skills that they had to learn with the auto detailing with that. Then we moved on to lamp building and repair. So a little bit of electric work, but not very much. You can buy lamp kits at Menards or Walmart or anywhere. But we started out, we did some bottle lamps where we would drill a hole in the bottle and make a lamp out of that. And then we moved on to building Lego lamps. And again, there's some really good pictures of some of the lamps we did. The kids really got into this, being creative, and they sold very well. As you can see, there's all kinds of different functional things. One of my favorites here, they actually have a flying airplane flying over the tower. So that was actually pretty cool to see how they really got invested in that and took pride in what they were doing. We couldn't keep them busy enough. It's hard to come up with Legos. We took donations because if you have kids, you know that Legos are expensive, and it would have made our costs go way up. So we asked for donations of Legos. We got a ton, but we also then had parachute cord that we bought supplies, and the kids made all kinds of different things: bracelets, necklaces. We made some long dog leashes. I'm wearing one of the bracelets that they made now, and keychains. And those, actually, some of them are still on sale at the Warrior Warehouse, which is run by Mrs. Smith's class at the middle school. So that, we had to have a little bit of fill time because it was a lot of work, but we couldn't always just be doing the lamps. Currently, we're doing freezer meals. Nobody has enough time to do anything, especially cook. So we've taken on researching freezer meals. The kids have come up and done research on what kinds of meals they can do. They come up with a recipe, and then, most recipes say that they serve 4 to 6 people. I have them multiply the recipe out to serve 24 people or however many that we're going to do. So then they have to make their own grocery list. And we go shopping, they get the list, and then we actually do the cooking. Along with that, we've talked about paying back to the community and having them have a sense of pride in the community. So each of the meals that we've done so far, they've donated one of the meals to a family that's in need. We did one to Mrs. Rimstead. We will be doing one next week to Austin Woodbeck, the student who took his life, his family next week. So gives them a little bit more sense of pride in the community. So, and then there's a few pages of pictures here. I've been taking more pictures of the cooking because it's easier to do. But we did pot pies. The kids love doing those individual pot pies. And then chicken enchiladas was what we made on Tuesday. And then next term, we will be going back to the shop and be doing woodworking again. So we're looking to probably continue with the Adirondack chairs and tables that Mr. Meyer did. They were very popular. But then doing some other smaller things, some lawn games. I have some different things there. Which brings us to the next piece. In order to augment, there's a company called Conover that does an online program. And what it does is it talks really, it's all online. The kids go through it, and it does scenarios that they have to read through, and then they are given quizzes and tests. And it goes over the soft skills that our students don't have. Hard skills are the things that you learn from the books. They're the actual tasks of being able to do it. Our kids are able to do the hands-on work. The reason they can't keep the jobs is because they can't get along with their boss. They can't get along with their coworkers. So it teaches those. So there's a workplace readiness program. If you go to the next one, it's broken into 8 different categories that they do. So these are the categories that they go through. They have to score a 70% or higher in each category, so I know that they're not just going through, and I can track that on the computer. And then at the end of that, once they've completed it, they actually get a certificate that I print out for them, and then they can include that in any job applications that they want. And then we also had the food safety inspector from Polk County came in and did a presentation, so all of the kids were able to earn a food handler safety certificate that's good for 2 years. So if they want to get a job at a restaurant or a food handling facility, they have that as well. So it's, as far as then the future, what I would hope happens is that the kids have been talking a lot. They've loved the class. They talk a lot about what else can we do. So what I'd really like is that this seems to be pretty successful with the kids, is that if they can come up with some more ideas, that over the course of 2 years we can have 6 to 8 different jobs that we kind of rotate through. And that way they can have more experiences and have a different exposure to many different types of things that might and eventually lead them down a path that they stay on forever. So, and that's what I have.
So how do we fund that? Is that funded through just regular budget, or is it a grant, or does it self-fund itself, or?
The startup went through pull-through dollars,
Uh-huh.
but actually it's kind of self-supporting because the work that they do is they're getting paid for selling the food or doing the detailing, and it has now become self-funding.
Great.
Awesome.
I think it's terrific.
Yeah.
It is.
Great job.
Awesome. Thank you.
Truck was detailed and it was never clean.
Can I ask real quick? How do you get the information out to the community? So other than just school, people might, because if you're talking about the chairs or the
There's
food
the chairs
or
and those
chairs.
things, I think we'll be able to do that a little more with. The food has been a little harder because I only have one block to do it in.
Mm-hmm.
We worked our butts off on Friday to get 23 pot pies done, and they sold just within the school staff.
Oh, I
It
believe
sold in less than 90 minutes. And so it's been really, it would be great if I had more time to do and actually do a business and get out to the community. And with the auto detailing, we did get flyers out, and like I said, we did have 3 or 4 people that called and scheduled things with, so.
So do you
That's kind of the next phase is how do we get it more community involved?
Do you just like try to find open spots in Mrs. Larson's schedule so you can use her room, or how does that work?
For the cooking, it actually, just back down, sorry. For the cooking, we actually worked it out, so she's on prep
Okay.
when I have this class, and
So
then.
it's worked out real well.
So it does, and then we set it up for woodworking that I have class at the same time that Mr. Ganji is on prep, so
Okay.
so that those facilities are open.
Well, that's kind of lucky.
The middle school was nice enough to allow us to use their shop, which wasn't being used for the auto detailing. Just because we couldn't get in. They were doing home and auto repair at the high school, so we didn't really have a place there. But and then the lamps we did in my classroom. So yeah, I think as long as we know ahead of time, we can kind of plan around that.
How many students do you have involved in this?
I've had as many as 8 at one time. Right now I have 5, so it kind of goes up and down throughout the year with some of the kids. But I have an aide that comes in and helps as well. 8 kids is a lot.
Do you
when you're
choose the
doing a lot.
kids, or do they choose the class?
We choose the kids right now. They're mostly the students that are on my caseload and that struggle more with the real hard academics. So, and then some of them, it's been nice because they've transitioned into some work study jobs in the afternoon, even for some of them where they're holding down jobs now for part of the school day.
Great, super.
Okay, good job.
Thank you.
All right. So we can move ahead here. Where are we? Consent agenda items. So I had the vouchers this month, so I'll make a motion that we accept those.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, those are done. Next, community comments. It doesn't look like we have anybody else here. Making sure. Okay, move on to our administrative reports. Mr. Cook.
Okay, just real briefly, a couple of things. Of course, much of our time has been consumed with referendum preparation and information being provided, so the schools have displays, and also several area community businesses have agreed to allow the the informational displays to be displayed at their businesses. I was on WPCA radio this morning at 9. Will be next Monday at 9 o'clock as well, and they're requesting to present information there. Also, we've got community meetings set up on Wednesday, March 1st at Amery City Council, on Monday, March 6th at Amery Women's Club to be held at Family Restaurant. That's at Pizzeria. And then on Monday, March 13th at Amery Community Club. And practically every morning of the week that I'm in town, I'm either at Senex, Ellie's Community Center, Ida Mae's, or Family Restaurant, just talking with people in the community and providing information. So there's a lot of good information out there, and we want to continue that.
Can I add something on that to you? So just, and I know we're on cable, we don't have the newspaper here tonight, but I think it's important just for our community. If you have any questions, call the school and ask. Don't rely on information that might be out there that might not be necessarily always correct or 100%. If you call Mr. Cookta, and I think it's important that the community knows that Mr. Cookta's job statutorily doesn't allow him to take pro or negatives, he'll really give you the scoop with the correct information. So if you have any questions about information or things you may hear or wonder about, please call the school, because that's our job to be able to explain what's going on with that.
Correct. Thank you. Also, we have parent-teacher conferences going on this evening. I know Ms. Meyer was there, and all of our administrators were there, so I'll turn it over to our administrators for a report.
I just have one that I would like to talk to the board about tonight. And we have our 3 AIM teachers are on their way to Green Bay. They'll be accepting an award called the Gold Leaf Award, and it is by the Wisconsin Arborists Association. And the reason they are getting this award is because of their outstanding Arbor Day activity that they held last fall. So that's exciting. They'll be at a luncheon tomorrow in Green Bay to accept the award.
Awesome.
I just have one item. I'd like to say congratulations to Katie Johnson. She's a school psychologist here who was elected to the Wisconsin delegate to the executive board of the National Association of School Psychologists. So she will be represent and advocate for children and educators of our state at a national level beginning in July. So it's a very awesome appointment.
Super.
So.
We have 3 state-bound wrestlers as of Saturday. Congratulations to, and please let me not forget anybody, Carl Ullman, Sean Wallen, and Michael Smith. And if we do happen to have anyone go to state and win a state championship, we established a tradition last year that a state champion would wrestle Darren Van Blair.
Well, that'll be about 10 seconds.
We're still waiting for the Hunter match. And if not Hunter, Bennett. I'd go with Hunter.
I'll go with the proxy. Bennett owes me one. Okay. Is that it?
Good. Thank you.
That's all you got? All righty. We can move ahead to our informational items and budget projections with Mr. Cookta.
Okay, as many of you know, there was a lot to do in the news a couple of weeks ago with the governor's report, and all I want to mention or report on is that the governor's proposal of $200 per pupil categorical aid for next year and $204, I believe, the following year. What that would do for our budget, as we are looking at an $800,000 deficit for next year, it would give us, if that full amount is passed, it would give us $302,000. So in other words, it would reduce our $800,000 deficit, $302,000. So it would be just under a $500,000 or $500,000 deficit. So as you can see, it's really kind of a finger in the dike, I guess you might say. It's nice that the governor has proposed more additional funds for the school. It's more than he's proposed in the past. However, the problem is it's not enough for what we need, and I guess I'll leave it at that at this point.
I think we can just add that you and I will be going down to, I don't think anybody else was going to go. Were you down to Madison?
I might, but I won't know until the first week in March.
Okay, so at least Mr. Cookta and I, and possibly Chelsea, but for sure the two of us are going down to meet WASB, the School Boards Association Day at the Capitol. It's really nice they allow us. They actually set up our meetings, so we'll have a chance to get in front of our legislators. And Senator Harsdorf is on the Joint Finance Committee, which is really the ones that's going to do a lot of the controlling as to how much money actually comes in that per pupil addition, so that'll be helpful.
Right. I wanted to mention also we're a long ways from that budget proposal from the governor being finalized. It has to go through Joint Finance, through the Assembly, through the Senate, and then be signed ultimately by the governor, and that's typically around June. So there's a long process to go before that. There was one more piece of information I think Twyla was going to offer.
I was just going to add that we met with J.A. Counter last Friday, coming up with some preliminary ideas on where our health plan will come in. That's always a huge item that we have to consider in our budget. It's our second year of a 2-year contract with Health Partners. We do have a cap. However, we're hoping that we won't go to that cap, and just going out with different ideas, different plan designs, different options, and J.A. Counter will be getting back to us probably the first week of March and letting us know our preliminary numbers. Our usage is good. They trending and can see there's still a lot of time left for us to incur some more claims. But they said we were doing well that way. So we'll just see what happens in March. But I wanted to let you know that piece, which is usually a pretty big piece of the budget puzzle, is in the works, and we'll know some numbers the first part of March.
Great. Any questions on that? We've been doing, the board's been doing our diligence on that side of it too. So, so we've seen lots of numbers and ideas and whatnot, and we'll continue that discussion as time goes on. Referendum makes a big difference as to how we proceed as well. So, anybody else anything on that? All right. Next up, we have achievement gap reduction information. Mrs. Meyer, I know it's gone.
Right, and so we've moved that to next month.
Okay.
We'll have an update.
So we can table that. That's easy enough. Next, we move on to our action items. Mrs. Hutton is here with the clubhouse.
Well, and actually, I was just going to report that Ms. Hutton is here to answer any questions.
Oh.
But, Dina, if you can get that document up. We have had the same rates since the clubhouse opened in August of 2015, and we have proposal for increases for our clubhouse employees. We've had a pretty consistent turnaround, sort of a revolving door in our clubhouse, and I believe our parents are aware that our rates have been held steady and that a tuition rate increase is likely to happen. They've been notified by Nina, our director, and so at this time, these are the proposals that we have for the different levels of clubhouse pay adjustments. So if you look at clubhouse child care program, the level 1 would go to $11, level 2 to $11.50, level 3 to $12.50, and level 4 to $13, and then level 5, $14.25, and then longevity after 10 years to $15 and $15.50 after 20 years. So those are all of the wage proposal increases, and it also coincides with a tuition increase, which essentially would be about a wash in the with the cash flow.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept that recommendation?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Chelsea, is there a second?
Second.
Anybody have questions, want to discuss anything?
When's the timeline that this is going to take place then?
We're looking at March 1st timeline for the increase in the rate pay, and then April 1st for tuition.
What the tuition increase will be,
Okay.
and April 1st, and they've been very positive.
Great.
They'd like to see the great staff retained.
Super.
Okay.
Us too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's not a lot of discussion on this, I don't think.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else with any questions or anything? With that, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that moves forward. Next, substitute bus drivers.
Okay, this is something that we've looked at, but our substitute bus driver pay, we are looking at, currently they're at $24.50, and we've researched, Bill Peterson and I have researched with area districts the rate of pay, and we're very much on the low end. Even at $30 per hour per trip, we would be in the medium range. The range is about $28 to $40 for the, and different districts do it differently as far as per mile pay and hourly rate and per trip, but this would put us about in the middle, and it would be, I believe I calculated a 22% raise. However, I don't know when it's been last raised.
Right.
I believe it's been a long time, but this is something that our regular drivers are proponents of, and something that we'd like to see, and we'd like to see this go into effect next school year, or I guess fiscal year 2016.
Okay.
Excuse me, 17-18. So that would start in July.
All right. Can I get a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on it? Again, it's pretty much a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's done. Next, we have, I see Mrs. Sjogren came in. So I'm guessing Mrs. Sjogren.
Yes,
will have
Ms.
her-
Sjogren for summer school.
Here to talk about summer school. Can we get you up? We got to get you up so we can hear you. Not so we can hear you, so that everyone, all of our home contestants get to listen.
Well, we have had.
Please use the mic.
We
Thanks.
have had accomplishments, changes, and challenges in getting summer school going. Accomplishments, all of the refresher courses. I am retiring the word remedial. They're going to be refresher courses. Refresher courses all have teachers for both June and for August. All students K through 3 will register for either an 8 a.m. reading session or a 10 a.m. math session. The elementary school teachers really recommended that the kids go to one of the two and then have an enrichment course. They find that 4 straight hours of heavy-duty instruction can be a little overwhelming for these students, and that was their recommendation based on years of experience. For June enrichment courses, there are a total of 7 kindergarten to first grade courses that are being offered, 8 second to third grade courses, and 18 fourth through 8th grade courses. There were a lot of teachers who came forward willing to teach the upper grades. I do have a concern of a shortage of enrichment courses for kindergarten through third grade. I have made lots of efforts in getting some more enrichment teachers, but we have a lot of people who will be taking vacations, who have had challenging school years, and they're tired. So I'm having a hard time getting extra K through third grade teachers for the enrichment courses. I did supply a chart that shows the number of remedial students based on
Refresher.
No, ma'am. Okay. The challenge is, based on the number of students who were involved, I'm afraid it would be in this one. Based on the number of students who were involved in our remedial refresher courses last year, and if these same students do get, a similar number are recommended to take these courses, based on the elementary school's recommendations of having one remedial and an enrichment course, during week 1, it's possible that we could be 4 slots short just for remedial students and offering none to students who just need enrichment. So I am concerned, and if principals would please, even if it's not in the grade level, if you would please really encourage teachers to take that opportunity. I will be soon sending the catalog off to Paperworks, but and even if someone is interested but has no idea what they want to teach, I can help.
Yeah.
July swimming lessons have been established. They will be at the center in New Richmond. The fee per child has risen from $20 a child last year to $24 per child for a 2-week session. The swim bus supervisors have been established. Swimming lessons will be, the first 2-week session will take place July 5th through 7th and July 10th through 14th. The second session will be the last 2 weeks of July from Monday through Thursday. We have already established the pickup and drop-off times and coordinated with Bill for busing and with Stacy Nelson for integrating some food service opportunities for these kids. The August refresher courses will be July 30th through August 11th, and the K through 8 teachers' positions have been filled. We have had some changes and growth in summer school. This year, both summer kindergarten in June and for June, the 4K summer fund. So those are the children who are entering our 4K program. Both of these will run 3 sections. So we'll have 3 teachers who will teach all the same children for all 3 weeks. In the past, the 4K students would go for 1 week, and that would be from 8 in the morning until 12. And now they will be going the full 3 weeks. The rationale behind that is that our 4K program is now all day, every day, as opposed to Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday half days. And this will better equip the students to make that transition into full-time school in the fall. Another change, Janice Jensen, who teaches special ed at Lean Elementary, came to me. She has had a special education program for many years through summer school, and that had been a 1-week class, but she has expanded it to a 3-week class, and she is approaching it more as a teacher of the refresher and remedial courses would. She is, instead of just being more of a social skills, sort of an enrichment class for her students, she has given me a course outline with a lot of academic goals in them. So she's very excited about being able to offer this for a full 3 weeks. Another change, I met with Mr. Gupta and with Bill Peterson and Stacy Nelson. We had realized that in previous years it was a challenge to get lunch fed to the children, to get a full academic course in those last 2 hours of summer school, and also to get them on the bus. So we made some changes. Instead of dismissing buses at 12 o'clock, they will be at 12:15, so that the full 10 to 12 session of summer school could get all the time that they needed to get educational goals met. So Stacy Nelson has figured out the feeding times for all of the children to accommodate that change in transportation. August enrichment classes, I have tried to encourage that. It had been, now that summer school is in August as well, those have been remedial only for the first 2 weeks in August. I have had several teachers come forward with ideas for enrichment classes to increase our numbers and get more contact minutes with our students. We will need to have a few more to make that run, because kids need to have one course that they can go to from 8 to 10 and another at their same level from 10 to 12 to make that work. So I'm still doing some recruiting in that regard. There have been some changes in fees as well. Mr. Gupta and I had a conversation about the enrichment class fees that have been every year for a very long time to cover equipment and supplies. Kids may have paid $5 or whatever as tuition per class. DPI forms changed last year, and Katie Johnson had found that there were some great challenges in reporting the use of tuition funds, and I think Ms. C.K. can attest to that. There has been, I understand, a donor who has come forward and has offered to cover those fees for all of our students. We thought that might be a safe experiment this year to see if waiving those course fees we will still be able to be financially responsible in running that. I do have some questions, and I invite your input. We would have to decide, would this include swimming lessons as well at $24 a child, or would we still, perhaps for swimming lessons, charge a fee? In the past, it had been $5 to help to cover transportation and the tuition. We also should consider, should this donor's generous offer cover all of our enrichment courses? Many of them have tuition fees suggested by the teachers of $0 to $5, but I do have a few courses in the technology department that would be about $15 a child. So we'll have to make a decision in that regard if we want to have across the board no fees, or have maybe a small fee for some of the more expensive courses. Any suggestions there? I guess this donor is a mystery to me, so, I don't know quite how generous this person's thought was.
Yeah, she made direct contact with Twyla, so I'll let her go ahead.
And she would like to remain anonymous at this point. Actually, she was in conjunction with Ruby's Pantry wanting to contribute to pay for school lunches, and they beat her to it. And so, unbeknownst, they did not know each other at all. It was just a coincidence of two. And she said, well, darn, I really want to help. And so, what else can I do? And the summer school fees, I did work with Katie Johnson. The fee collection for summer school is very, very time-consuming and tedious in that you are not allowed to charge any more than what it costs for the supplies of the class. And so it made it very difficult for the teacher to know how many kids they had, and we literally have to track each item that's purchased for the classes. And so when I called DPI and said, hypothetically, if we had a community member want to do this, and they said, go for it, yes, if you could get that and not have to deal with course fees, that would, DPI said that was just an awesome, generous idea. So it's very doable in our reporting end of it. The caveat is for the swimming lessons, we can't charge for the transportation and we can't charge for the fee. We can't charge for a summer school fee that way. And so typically our kids they got goggles and towels, and that is what the fee went toward. So some of those more expensive, kids in the kitchen where there might be cooking items, or tech ed where there might be, components, those we can charge for just the cost of what it costs to have those classes, but nothing above and beyond. And so the donation probably wouldn't cover 100% of, if you compare to what we collected last year based on last year, but it would probably cover 3/4 of it. So
across the board, no fees?
Yeah, that's what we had discussed, and I think that's what we'd like to try this year and see what impact it will have, if it really makes much difference with parents registering their students or not.
Okay. And then with your blessing in the catalog, I would like to say that there is a very generous donor who is taking care of these fees, so that parents realize that when they register their child, that it's wise to actually then send the child to make use of these fees. We've all of us who have taught summer school have had one or two who just don't come, and yet their supplies have been purchased. So I will very tactfully say in the catalog that we have this generous donor.
And also to know that there's no guarantee that a generous donation will happen the following year. And so even though the fees aren't there this year, that's not to say that we may not have to have fees the following year.
I may take the teacher's recommended course fee, which was a part of their application process, and just have that printed, but do a strike through.
Sure.
So that
It's a good idea.
Clear, how much value there is in this. Another area that I would like to have some guidance in, we have Mr. Lorson, who is changing his career, his moniker in his career, and he is wanting to help at the golf course by teaching classes. Unable to teach summer school this summer, and had offered a connection between golf lessons and the summer school so that it could be counted under our minutes, our contact minutes. The challenge there is that the golf course really does need a $40 tuition fee per child. Because I am new to all of the subtle nuances of summer school. If anyone has an idea of how we could put that under the summer school umbrella, but still guarantee the tuition to the golf course.
You'll deal with that.
Yeah.
I welcome the-
Yeah, and we would send that over to Mr. Cook to figure out
Yeah,
how
we
that would
we
work.
can meet and finalize a decision on that.
Agreed.
That's even above our end.
Okay. I have this is our theme for this summertime for some more learning. Our catalog is nearly complete. My next steps are to finalize the catalog this week and set up online registration. We plan to send printed catalogs to families on March 23rd. Online registration will begin March 24th, and registration will end on April 9th.
Great.
So what are you looking for from us
Well,
here
we
today?
need actually approval from the board, and if you could include in that, at my discretion, what we decide with that golf course.
So approval of what we have so
Approval
far?
of what you see, yes.
Because there'll be additions to it, right?
There could be.
Are we going to need to reapprove that then next month, or can we just?
You can approve
we-
it with,
With the caveat.
We can approve it and give you the authority to
Yes.
any changes that need to be made? That makes
as long as there's action taken.
In addition to golf, I mean, are there other classes, like, for example, the strength and conditioning camp for boys and girls at the fitness center? I mean, that's something that's very educational, that's where I'm sure we can't waive the fee since it's the hospital, but, I mean, that could be submitted too, as well as getting minutes.
The final pages of the catalog, I'm working with Tracy Hendrickson, and we will have things like baseball clinics and basketball clinics and those types of things that are more through community education. And as the DPI summer school rules allow, we will be able to count those in.
Good.
I would actually like to make that motion, exactly as presented, with the caveat that the additional items will come through you, and that you'll be able to take care of that, and that
we'll delegate
you have,
the authority
Yep,
to-
you have that authority.
Right.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Very well put together. We know how much work it is, so you have our undying gratitude for taking this. Okay, know that we're not blowing it at you. We know the work involved, so we say thank you.
Definitely.
Thanks, Ms. Sjogren. Great job.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There we go. Motion.
I was going to say we didn't do that.
Yeah, no.
I would like to do a shout out to the wonderful donor on behalf of me personally and the community, my family, our portion of the community. I am so thankful that our community members step up to the plate and want to help, and I am eternally grateful.
Great. Okay, we can move on to personnel.
Okay, we have personnel action, which we have a couple of resignations that require board approval, and also a couple transportation items. One, let's see.
Yeah, it's all on the list here, right?
Yep. Yeah, so what needs a board approval, the rest I can approve, any transportation contracts, so the resignation of Fred Lunsman from transportation, the teaching resignations from Zaida Severson and Miranda Doolittle, and the transportation hire of Sheila Morfitt from half-day to full-day all need board approval.
Did we, just a total side note here, did we, when we made the change in the delegation of what we approve and what we don't, did we keep the coaching into the board approval end? I can't remember that. Was that something we had discussed? You may say no, and that's the case. I don't have any reason for asking it, other than I can't remember.
Yeah.
I thought we did.
I thought we didn't have.
That we kept that.
That we kept
I
that.
thought we had reserved that just so that somebody could get blamed.
Sure.
If there was something going on, then
Well,
and it
so
would be
then,
us.
so that if that's wishes of the board, then the coaching positions as well can be.
I
right.
thought that was the
Sure.
way we had done that.
Yeah.
And everything else we didn't.
Yep, and by law, state law
Right.
requires that all transportation, administrative, and teaching contracts do, but
Yep, and then we had changed so
That's-
we don't approve any of the other contracts like we used to,
Yeah.
except I think we held on to, we want to make sure that we're still have the input.
Sure.
Whatever, for what it's worth, like,
Yep,
it makes no
that's fine.
difference. Anyway, so can I get a motion to accept all that?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, those are all done. I think you have nothing else?
That should be it.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Keith, is there a second?
Second.
Chelsea? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.